in heaven they have little chariots, but they're not all this flamboyant. They don't call attention to themselves. They're more like the angels, servants. They're just there to serve the saints. And they can be small, like two-seater, like in the olden days you take your girlfriend for a ride in a two-seater, you know. Or they can look like buses, have a lot of seats. And these vehicles can move on the land or on the river, you know, or through the sky, any place that, and the Spirit of God moves them.
That was my question. Do we direct those vehicles, or are they moved by?
No, this comes back to, as we discussed, we must be yielded to the Spirit of God, see? And this yielding seems to be difficult on earth for us to learn. But in heaven, we'll have to learn this. Complete yieldedness to the Spirit of God. And delight. Jesus said, I delight to do thy will, O my Father, for thy law is within my heart. So we have this delight. The Apostle Paul said, if I do this willingly, I have reward, see? So heaven is not a place where, oh, I'm doing God's will, but not my will. Right. See? They mistake that by what Jesus said when he had to suffer on the cross. We won't be suffering in heaven, see? We're going to be delighting ourselves in these things. And so these chariots are moved by the Spirit of God to take us where he wants to take us. We just go along for the ride.
So you float, for want of a better expression.
Yes, that's the best way I can explain it in English.
And you have the little vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Any other mode of transportation?
Well, not that I have seen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other persons who've visited and they talk about different type of chariots, which there could be. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I can't say what I don't know.
Because you didn't see me.
I didn't know. That's what I understand, see.
Is time kept in heaven? Are there days, weeks, months, years?
Heaven is a very interesting place. There's nothing monotonous, including the passage of time on earth, see. Now, on earth you sense the passing of time. The clock ticks, you know, the sun goes over the horizon, and you sense the passing of time. You don't sense the passing of time. But there are different periods of time. There's a time when the sky is bright, and this we call day. And then there's a time when the sky is not so bright. The old folks had a name for it, gloaming, in the evening time. Some people think this is when God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden at the cool of evening, see. Mm-hmm. It's a time when activity seems to slow down. And this day and night, shall we call it? No night in heaven, but light and less light. Mm-hmm. Hard to put it in English, you know. It makes a 24-hour period.
Well, it's hard to put it in human.
Yes, the same as we have on earth.
So it's a 24-hour period.
Yes, and then the daylight time would go in 7-day lengths. So you have the week, and then at the end of the week, there was a special day set aside for special worship services in God's presence.
What about communication? Are there any language barriers in heaven?
I suppose that's an important question people would like to know. We think of communicating by thoughts on earth, like sometimes among our family. If somebody's out somewhere and the phone rings, we say, oh, that's David, because we know he's... Right. Well, that's one way that we communicate. I mean, we can know what the other person's thinking. But speaking of languages there, Charlie, you know, Adam and Eve only spoke one language. But somewhere along the line, down there about the Tower of Babel, you know, overnight, God changed the languages. And the next morning, everybody spoke a different language.
There was no understanding.
And they didn't understand each other. And so that's been with us down through the ages. And as I understand it, God is going to bring this all again. It might be expressed in the words there, Paul, bringing everything together in one in Christ Jesus, which would include languages. One language. See, coming down to one language.
Jesus said, in my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare you one. I want you to tell me about mansions in heaven.
A very good subject. As I approach my mansion, which I'm going to call my country mansion, There is a rose arbor in front of it with a heart-shaped trellis. You go through this heart-shaped trellis, lovely row of flowers on this side. I don't know what flowers are, but somebody told me they were chrysanthemums.
How do they know?
Well, I described them for them, and they said they must be chrysanthemums. And the mansion itself sits on about 10 acres, large place. And then we go into the vestibule, large, round, about 20 feet round, large place.
Inside the front door.
Inside the front door, yes, when you enter through the front door. So as you step in this vestibule, to the right there's a door, and in that door is the banquet room. And then to the left is a door. In that door is the fellowship hall, or the living room, as we say on earth. And then in front of you is a spiral stairway that goes up to the other floors. Then on the second floor, there is a huge balcony that overlooks the garden, so that you can be up on the balcony and look down into the garden and see what's growing down there. The second floor is music room, piano. I play guitar, so I have a guitar.
Any special kind?
Well, yes, it's very special. Inlaid with white mother of pearl, something like the gate of the city we talked about.
Great.
Very beautiful. Let's talk about a banquet now.
Yes.
In the banquet room. We gather in this room, we gather our friends. Like my father may want to be with his brothers and sisters, but there are some times when I want my father with me and his children, see, plus other friends we'd gather around. Now I sit at the servant end of the table, and Jesus sits at the head of the table.
Jesus is at your banquet.
Jesus comes to the banquets, yes. He did on earth, he does in heaven. And we think of Jesus as standing at God's right hand. But you see, Jesus is able to appear any place he wants to. He's not just in my banquet. There's other banquets, and he can appear also in all those other banquets.
At the same time.
Yes, at the same time. The word omnipresent, it really means what it says. We think of the Spirit of God being omnipresent because we can't see it. See? And we think if something we can see can't be omnipresent. But that's not the case. Even though we can see Jesus in heaven, he is still omnipresent. He can be any place he wants to be. Now, we're not omnipresent. We're only one place at a time. But that's not the case with Jesus.
In heaven, we're in one place, but Jesus can be at your banquet, my banquet,
Right.
Lois's picnic,
Yes. Any place.
Brother Joe's party.
And at the same time, standing at the right hand of God. And then the people sit around the sides. And then the person who is serving comes in, and they're directed as to what to serve, and they go back out again. And they bring in a platter. Now, as we said before, most things in heaven are gold, but this is a silver platter. I don't know why, I just noticed it was a silver platter, you know. It's oval shaped like a platter usually is. And on this platter is little things that look like bonbons, little small pieces of food. And it is made, I don't know if you ever tasted almond butter,
Sure.
but it's like almond butter, and then they flavor it with dried fruit. And it's very tasty. And so it's not piled high, just neatly put on the tray, the pieces of food. And as it's passed around, each person takes a piece, passes it to the next person, and when one piece is taken, another piece appears in its place. You know, something like the 5 loaves and 2 fish.
Right, they never ran out.
Never ran out. That's
Right.
right. Just kept passing them out as they went around the table. Oh, I forgot to mention that there's little angelic creatures or something that make the music. You don't put your cassette in a boombox and push the button.
No stereos?
No stereos. It just is little angels that make this music.
While you're eating, or all the time, or when you're...
Well, especially at the banquet, I could see them. You know, I wonder where the music was coming from. And then I could see the little angelic.
Are they singing, playing?
Just singing.
Just singing.
There seems to be instruments, but I didn't know where that was coming from. Now, there are intimacies in heaven. Let me explain this. We were talking about the Spirit of God living in us, you know.